Hi and welcome to the Eason Summer Must Reads for 2020. As you can see, not the usual circumstances in which you would find either myself or Sinead. I am in my sitting room and Sinead is in the tiniest office in the world. In which, can you put your hands out and touch both walls? Is that a thing?
I can't even social distance with myself in this office. It's so small. It's basically a wardrobe.
Okay, Sinead's in her wardrobe and I'm here, and we have 8 fantastic books for you for summer 2020. I'm going to start with this, a book that may not necessarily take you entirely out of the mindset you might be in at the moment, but isn't really about the now. However, this is Notes from an Apocalypse by Mark O'Connell. Mark experienced a small life crisis when he had the birth of his first child and was wondering what sort of world his son was going to grow up in. As a result of which, he thought, maybe I should do some investigating as to where we're heading right now. So the book takes him through lots of different places. It takes him to Los Angeles to a seminar of millionaires and billionaires who are thinking about colonizing Mars. It takes him to New Zealand and to meet up with some of the locals to talk about those very same tech billionaires buying up large tracts of land there because New Zealand is seen to be the place to be to hole up if everything goes terribly wrong. He goes to Pripyat, which is near Chernobyl, the city that was abandoned after the Chernobyl disaster in the exclusion zone, and goes on a tour there as well, and does lots of other stuff throughout the course of the book as well. In it, attempting to answer questions about where we potentially could all be in the next 15, 20 years and what sort of world his son might be growing up in. I highly recommend it. There's not a lot about pandemics in it, to be honest with you, so you can probably just completely leave that to one side. This is Mark O'Connell's brand new book, and it's called Notes from an Apocalypse.
So my first book is We Begin at the End by Chris Whitaker. This is a good, meaty book. It is so beautiful. It's set in small town America. And the main character is 13-year-old Duchess Radley. And she is the most phenomenal character. She's feisty, she's scratchy, she's like a little alley cat. But she has to be because her mother is an alcoholic and she basically is raising her little brother more or less on her own. And then there's a chief of police, Walk. Now, Walk grew up with Duchess's mother, and something happened when they were sort of in their early 20s that has changed all their lives. And so he is the closest thing she has to a parent. He keeps an eye on her, and they have this very kind of complicated but beautiful relationship. It reminded me a little bit of the relationship between Eleven and Chief Hopper in Stranger Things. So that is very kind of, unconventional relationship. But this book, it's about love, it's about loss, it's about single parenthood, it's about survival and Duchess and her life and how she tries so hard to protect Robin. It will break your heart and it will stick it back together again, and then it's going to break it again, but you will not be able to put it down. It is the most gorgeous read, and I just literally opened to the first page and didn't look up. So perfect for these times.
One of the great rules of life and of reading is that everybody needs a little bit more of Liz Nugent in their lives. This is Liz's brand new novel. It's called Our Little Cruelties. If you've ever read Liz before, and I hope you haven't, if you haven't, you should read everything that Liz has ever written. She starts at the very beginning with Will, Brian, and Luke. They are 3 brothers. They're all at a funeral. One of them is in the coffin. And then throughout the course of the entire novel, she tells us their back histories, growing up together, their stories, their lives, without actually revealing at any point up until the very end which one of them is the one who has died and which 2 are standing there. It is a testament to Liz's writing that she always manages to take a first paragraph of a book and makes you go, yep, I mean, that's whatever it is Liz is doing with this, I'm happy with that. This book is easily her best book since Unraveling Oliver, and I don't say that lightly because Liz writes some quite exceptional books. It's also getting really, really lovely grow from people everywhere, including Graham Norton when I spoke to him recently as well. So this is an absolute guaranteed winner. It is Our Little Cruelties, and it's the new book from Liz Nugent.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And Liz really does leave you until the very, very last page to find out who done it. She's fantastic. My second book is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. I think Maggie O'Farrell is an exceptionally gifted writer. So Hamnet and Hamlet are apparently interchangeable. I didn't realise that. So Maggie became really fascinated with why and how Shakespeare wrote his famous play, Hamlet. But really interestingly, even though this book is about that, Shakespeare's name is never mentioned. He's called the playwright, the husband, the father, because the book is about his fascinating wife, Agnes. So the story really is about Agnes and their children. And why did Shakespeare write Hamlet? He wrote Hamlet because they are absolutely devastated by the loss and death of their 11-year-old son. And so he disappears kind of into his world of playwriting in London, and she's left alone, and their marriage is in crisis, really, and she feels completely abandoned. And it's only when she realizes that his therapy and his way of getting through the grief was writing this play, and when she goes to see it, she understands why he disappeared from their lives. But it's really, really fascinating. And one of the really interesting things is that this terrible plague arrives on a flea, on a boy, on a bag who gets on a ship, who ends up in Stratford. And that's how their son dies. And there are kind of amazing parallels between what's going on at the moment. But it's a fantastic read, and she is an exceptional writer.
Yeah, you and I rarely argue over books, but you and I did have a slight fight over which one of us was going to get to put this in their half of the list. This is the one this time around. I know you won. I know. Look, let's just move on, shall we? To be honest with you, I'm kind of glad, because it then meant I got to read this. I wasn't expecting this at all. This is called How Much of These Hills is Gold. The author's name is C. Pam Zhang. It's an exceptional story. It starts at the very beginning with a father dying in California, in just post-gold rush California, in a family, leaving the two daughters, who are Lucy and Sam, bereft, because they now have to make their own way in the world. They are part of a mining community. They are as dirt poor gets at the time. And they are also the two daughters of immigrants from China. Both of their parents were. What makes this book extraordinary is that it is beautifully written. It is incredibly evocative of the time and the place. And I don't really have a great passion for that time and place. And a couple of books have taken me into it in recent years. It is the story of the two girls, both of whom are mere children when this happens to them, of what they have to do in order to make their way further in lives, and of their coming apart and coming together, and ultimately the nature of where their story takes them. It flips forward and back and tells us a little of the story of their parents as well. Again, I might not have stumbled across this, so I'm kind of really glad that I did. The book is called How Much of These Hills is Gold, and the author's name is C. Pam Zhang, and it's great.
Yeah, I was absolutely blown away by that, I have to say. It's just, the writing is exceptional. My next book is Love After Love by Ingrid Purr. And speaking of exceptional writing, this is fantastic. It's kind of written in Trinidadian island dialect. Don't let that put you off, because within a page or two, you're kind of in the rhythm of it. And it adds so much kind of layer and color to the book. And it's about Betty, who's a single mom, and Betty did something to her horrible alcoholic abusive husband that her son Solo doesn't know about. But then this one night, when Solo's in his late teens, he overhears Betty explaining what she actually did to his father, and that he didn't die because of an accident. And Betty's life has been built around Solo. He is her everything. And suddenly Solo is so upset and angry about the truth that he disappears to America, and Betty is left alone in Trinidad, absolutely bereft. And so the rest of the book is about Betty doing everything in her power to work back some kind of relationship with her son. And it's just so beautiful. And it's about a mother's unconditional love, and how you just, how you love your child more than anything else in the world. And it just is really exceptional. And the way it's written, and the language, and you can feel and smell the sights and sounds of Trinidad. It's absolutely brilliant, and I highly recommend it.
My final one is winner, 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 winner. This is Nisha Dolan's Exciting Times. This is a debut novel from Nisha Dolan. This is her first. The story of Ava. Ava is 22. Ava decides that she needs to get out of Ireland, and she goes to Hong Kong, where she ends up teaching English as a foreign language. She is new there. She doesn't really know anybody. She ends up meeting Julian. Julian is an expat British banker working in the banking community there. The two of them both end up falling into a kind of relationship. It's quite an unusual one. As to whether you would describe it as both of them keeping each other slightly at arm's length, despite the fact that they slightly then sort of end up living with each other, and each of them is in different worlds. Each of them has different financial backgrounds. It continues until Julian needs to go away for a couple of months for work reasons. Ava meets Edith. Edith works in law. She is a native Hong Konger, and she and Ava then start a relationship together as well. So the rest of the story tells out the triangle that then exists between the three of them. It's about a lot more than that, though. It's about the nature of the class structure in British society. It's about how Irish people react towards that, and about how they react towards us. It made me incredibly nostalgic for Hong Kong. I've spent 3 days in Hong Kong in my life. I was there on holidays last year, and reading this book made me immediately want to go back there and sit on the waterfront at 11 o'clock at night and drink a beer and watch the ferries come in. Which of course is not going to be happening in the foreseeable future for any of us. The book is also really, really funny. It is exquisitely written. There are whole sections you are going to flip back and go, I think I need to reread that page again because it's just so well put together. I think unfairly, she has been compared to Sally Rooney. I think it's a completely different beast. It's a different book, and she is a different writer. However, if after Normal People, you have a kind of hole in your life for a 20-something relationship story, this might be the one to fill it. And that's it. Her name is Nisha Dolan. The book is Exciting Times.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of Sally Rooney comparisons, but she is very much her own unique voice. So my final book is by the Irish writer Ruth Gilligan, and it is The Butchers. And to be honest with you, this is actually quite hard to explain because it is actually about butchers, which wouldn't be something that I would normally be particularly interested in. But Ruth has written this incredible book. It defies all genres. It's quite hard to explain, but it's incredibly layered. And it's about this kind of old group of an ancient tradition called the Butchers. And there are 8 men who go around the country and they slaughter the cows of farmers who still believe in that tradition. Now, one of the butchers is called Kush, and his daughter Una is probably the main character in the book. So Una's about sort of 12, 13, and she wants to be the first female to ever join this kind of ancient tradition. So that's her goal in life. So really, as the book goes on, it's about Una's coming of age, but it's also about modern Ireland's coming of age, because it's set in 1996 during the BSE, also known as the Mad Cow Crisis. And so you have this incredible parallel of kind of the ancient traditions, modern Ireland, and then obviously cows are central to the book as well. But it's about so much more. It's multi-layered. It's twists and turns. There's murders. There's mystery. There's love. There is trying to find your identity, and it's really phenomenal. And the fact that it defies genres, I think, makes it even more exceptional. So I couldn't recommend it more. She's a fantastic Irish writer, and so The Butchers, Ruth Gilligan, highly recommend it.
And that's it. They are our 8 Eason summer must-reads. I think there's definitely something in there for everybody, and we hope you enjoy them as much as we enjoyed finding them for you.
Yeah, I think with everybody reading more in lockdown, you probably will have more time to read. So we think we've covered you for the summer. We think you're good.